Welcome back. So today in this video we're going to talk about stories. And just to kind of illustrate some of this, I wanted to quickly start with a story that's kind of a recent event in my life that I think really does a nice job of showing that maybe how we tell a story, what we choose to include or exclude, what we choose to focus on can really make a huge difference in how somebody perceives an event that happened. So I have two fairly young kids, and we finally decided, I decided we wanted to get them a puppy for Christmas. And everybody in my family has wanted a puppy, but I was kind of the last holdout. It felt like a lot of work. And so I finally decided I wanted to give my kids that kind of magical Christmas gift that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. I wanted them to like open a box and there's a puppy inside. And so we looked around and we found the perfect litter of puppies, but they were like a 2-hour drive away. We had kind of a limited amount of childcare and time to go get them. And so we like drive as fast as we can to get out there. And we get there and there's these two puppies that are sisters, and they clearly love each other. They're both super adorable. We caved and decided like we couldn't separate them. So now we're getting two puppies. And so we're driving back. Again, we're really short on time. Turns out getting two puppies is slower than getting one. And one of the two is kind of freaking out the whole time. She's like up sitting on my wife's lap. My wife was trying to calm her down, but the pup is whining and clearly not having a good time. And so we have to like stop and try to let her go to the bathroom, and nothing we do is helping. It's clear the dog is having a bad go. What they didn't tell us when we got this dog, maybe I didn't know, is this dog gets incredibly motion sick, we've learned. So all of a sudden, we're driving down the highway, and this dog throws up everywhere. It's bad. It's all over the dog. It's all over my wife. It was actually kind of incredible that a dog that small could make that much vomit. But yeah, just really disgusting. But we're on the interstate. We're short on time. There's not a lot we can do, but just kind of power through and try to get home. But unfortunately, after throwing up, the dog is suddenly feeling way better. So now she wants to run around. She's wiggling, and of course she's wet, so she's hard to keep a hold of. And at one point she shakes, like wet dogs do. And it was honestly like something that you would see in like slow motion in a movie. Like it got all over me. It's on like the window of the car. Just an absolute disaster. So again, we power through, we get home, take the dogs straight into our big utility sink to rinse them off. We dry them off, but at this point, like the kids are already on their way home, and I need to get these dogs into a box. Like I'm not being robbed of this moment. So I grabbed the kennel from our previous dog that we had, and I put the dogs in, and I put wrapping paper all around it as fast as I can. And like right at that moment, the kids walk in, and they see these dogs, and they're absolutely pumped. And so I took this video at the moment. I posted it on social media, and everybody loves that kind of thing. Oh, you see one of them right there. And so everybody's like, "Oh, that's amazing! What a sweet moment!" And what they don't know is anything about the drive. They don't know that, like, even as I'm filming this, my sleeve still is covered in dog vomit. All they see is the kids walking in and their eyes lighting up, and the puppies are excited. There's one. That's Carrot. There's Katie. And so all they know about is the drive, all they know about is the kids walking in and their eyes lighting up, and the puppies, they're really excited like puppies are. And so all they see in this story is what my kids experienced, which was that perfect, magical Christmas gift. All right, so that's the story, right? It's pretty, there's two versions of that story. There's the kind of perfect thing that everybody saw, the experience that my kids had, and there's like the harrowing trip back. Both of those work. Both of those are sort of real stories of what happened. And I can tell either one. And again, they're both sort of good, memorable stories in their own way. And so this gets to a couple of things. One, and this is something that in your readings a little bit, but just stuff to know, is how do you tell a story that people pay attention to? And there's sort of 5 quick, easy principles here. So one, simplicity. It should be a fairly easily repeatable story in a lot of situations, right? You could boil that down to, oh, my professor went out to get puppies for his kids, and the dog threw up all over their car, and they had to drive home covered in gross stuff. It doesn't capture the fun of it, doesn't capture the details, but that's basically what happened. Number 2, there should be something unexpected. This story is based on something that was unexpected for all of us. Number 3, it should be concrete. So you want clear and vivid details. I maybe shared too many of those in this one. Number 4, you should have some sort of credibility in the story where it feels like you're telling the truth. It feels believable. That what happened in that story. Obviously, it's a first-person one, and so of course I know what happened, and hopefully that feels like a believable story that could happen to people. It did, and it was gross. And number 5, it taps into some sort of emotion. In this case, I think the primary emotion is probably disgust, right? That feeling of oh no, I can imagine the dog shaking and stuff everywhere. So anyway, think about those things: simplicity, unexpectedness, concreteness, credibility, and emotions. And if you do that, almost every story becomes a good one, as long as you don't sort of make it too long and too long between those different components. If you can tell a fairly quick story that does those 5 things, people are probably going to like it. As it relates to your speeches in this class and elsewhere, simple question of where can you strategically integrate stories into any speaking situation? The easiest one's an attention getter, right? You can open any speech with a story pretty much. You may be working on a speech that's, again, just a story. That's a little bit different, but pretty much any speech you give in this class or any presentation you give anywhere, opening with a quick story, often a good idea. Certainly at least one good option. Number 2, you could use it in the body of a speech, right? Somewhere within your points, kind of as a way to explain maybe a complex thing that you're talking about that maybe your audience wouldn't understand. So you can tell a quick story and use that to explain it. Number 3, you could use it at the end, just as a way to kind of wrap up, summarize, tie it all together. Or number 4, this is rare, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for this class, but you could, sometimes people will use a story as the structure of a speech. So I actually recently saw one that was kind of like a critique of our healthcare system and insurance, and it was just basically the story about this woman who went to the doctor and got sort of misdiagnosed, and so she goes in and she gets treatment, but she got the wrong diagnosis, so they give her the wrong medicine that has some long-term or some other side effect, and she goes in, that causes an insurance problem, right? And so the story of this woman's experience becomes the structure of the entire presentation. So again, those are all ways that you could integrate this in. The last thing I'd say here is that people just tend to really like stories, right? That's a pretty universal human thing, which makes being a good storyteller a pretty easy way to make yourself more likable, more memorable, etc. Honestly, I'd probably recommend just having a handful of stories that are related to different interests or interesting experiences that you've had. So if you lived somewhere unusual, what was the first time that place felt really different from home, right? So for me, did my PhD at LSU, and so when we moved to Louisiana, the first LSU football home game, or first LSU football game against Florida that I went to, we're walking through the crowds, and it's really densely packed, and we come up on these guys, and they have a massive camp, and they have probably an 8-foot alligator, on a spit, roasting. And I was that's crazy, what's happening here? And it took me about 3 minutes of kind of walking around this thing, and then the other team comes up, and I realize these people have set up right next to the tunnel that the Florida players walk by, so that as these student athletes come in, they can see someone cooking and eating their mascot, right? That story, again, super quick, it's kind of memorable. It captures, I think, something that's very different from what people are used to around here. I tell that story to people in Iowa, and it's remarkable because no Iowan has ever thought of eating their opponent's mascot. So again, just things like that. Just having quick little stories that you can bring up in any sorts of new interpersonal setting, people you don't know, at a job interview, whatever. Like if you just tell someone, I volunteer a bunch, or if I just walk up to somebody and I'm like, I have a PhD, not only is that not memorable, but you kind of look like a jerk. But if I tell them the alligator story, somebody will often ask, like, oh, why did you go to school in Louisiana? And I can just say, oh, they had like a really good doc program. It was like good for my wife and for myself. And now I don't like look like I'm bragging or like I was shoehorning my degree into the conversation. But it's actually something that's like much more likely for them to remember. And that type of thing works really well in a ton of social situations. So rather than just, I'm going to make sure you know this thing about me, just have a good story. It's going to feel much more conversational and it's going to be much more memorable. And that could be, again, somewhere you lived, if you actually are somebody who volunteers a lot. What's the funniest thing that happened while you were volunteering? So just kind of think through your experiences and try to have a few stories that you know how to tell them quickly, that are funny or interesting and brief. And I think if you can do that, you'll find it's useful in loads of social situations.